Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going to be exploring a really fascinating topic.
Oh, yeah?
It's marriageable age.
Okay.
And you might think it's pretty straightforward, you know?
Yeah.
You reach a certain age and
Right.
you're good to go. But as we're going to find out,
Yeah.
there's a lot more to it than that.
It's way more complex than you think.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
we've got some excerpts here
Okay.
from the Wikipedia article on marriageable age.
Cool.
And let me tell you,
Yeah.
it is packed with surprising facts and global perspectives that I think are going to really challenge some assumptions.
I think so too, because like marriageable age, it's kind of like it's like a cultural barometer almost.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, you can learn so much about a society by looking at when they allow people to get married.
Like their values and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Like their values, their economic conditions.
Wow.
Even their understanding of human development.
Okay. So
it's not
just a number.
It's not just a number.
sorry.
It's like a window into the past.
Oh, okay. No.
Yeah.
Let's jump right in.
Okay.
And we'll start with some ancient practices.
All right.
Ancient Greece and Rome.
The classics.
Yeah. So, we all picture togas and gladiators.
Yeah.
But would you believe that?
What?
In ancient Greece, girls could get married as young as 14.
Yeah.
Wow.
It gets even younger in ancient Rome.
Oh, wow.
12 was considered acceptable.
For girls.
For females to marry. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so to understand this, we kind of have to put ourselves back then.
Yeah, we have to think about the context.
Right.
High mortality rates.
Right.
Limited economic opportunities for women.
Makes sense.
And, a really patriarchal social structure.
Okay, so it sounds like marriage wasn't really about individual choice.
No, not so bad.
But more about like survival and power.
And consolidating power within families.
Right, yeah. Okay, so individual preferences aren't really.
Often took a back seat
to
the needs of the family.
Yeah.
And broader society.
Okay, I got it.
Yeah.
So this is interesting.
Okay.
Sparta, known for its warrior culture, actually had later marriage ages.
Interesting.
Women married around 18 and men around 25.
So different priorities.
Yeah, very different priorities compared to like their Athenian neighbors.
Yeah, it's fascinating how even within a relatively small geographic area, you could have these drastically different values and practices around marriage.
Okay, so in Sparta.
Well, in Sparta, military strength was super important.
Right.
Discipline was key.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that they'd want their warriors to be more mature.
Physically and mentally.
Yeah, physically and mentally
theory.
Before taking on the responsibilities of family.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
And speaking of influencing marriage practices.
Oh, yeah.
We can't forget the Roman Emperor Augustus.
Of course.
The Wikipedia article mentions that he actually enacted laws.
He did.
That rewarded marriage.
Wow.
And penalized people who stayed single.
Really? Like a nudge toward the altar?
Yeah. Talk about a nudge toward the altar.
Yes, that's really interesting.
It really shows you the power of policy.
Yeah, it does.
You know what I mean?
It does. It makes you wonder, though.
Yeah.
Like, did it work?
Like, what were the unintended consequences?
Yeah. Did people feel pressured?
Right.
Into marriages that weren't
a good fit.
Yeah, maybe weren't the best fit.
Yeah,
so
interesting.
Yeah, it really highlights that interplay
between
personal choice and societal pressures.
And we're gonna
which is a theme.
Do you see that?
We'll see throughout history.
Yeah. Okay,
keep going.
While we're on the topic of Rome.
The article also mentions the Vestal Virgins.
Oh, yeah.
These were priestesses chosen between the ages of 10 and 13 to serve for 30 years.
30 years.
Before they were allowed to marry.
That's a serious commitment.
It's incredible.
It is.
The Vestal Virgins are like a really remarkable example.
They are.
Of how religion and social roles could completely like redefine this concept of marriageable age.
Totally.
Their dedication to the goddess Vesta was like
highly respected.
Highly respected. They were given.
Yeah, and it gave them a level of independence and influence.
That was rare for women.
Very rare.
At that time.
Especially in Roman society.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes you think about different cultures and the path to adulthood.
How they viewed it.
Right, like for the Vestal Virgins.
Yeah.
It wasn't just about reaching a certain age. It was about like fulfilling
a specific social and religious duty. Exactly. And this ties back to our earlier point about, marriageable age not being just a number.
Right.
but a reflection of a society's values and beliefs.
Exactly. Okay, so it's clear that in these ancient societies, marriage was often more about like strategic alliances, family interests, than individual choice.
Absolutely.
And a Wikipedia article mentions that fathers had a huge role. In arranging marriages.
Huge role for their children.
They did. It was a tool for forging those political connections. Strengthening economic ties. Enhancing social standing.
So individual preferences were secondary.
They were secondary.
To the needs of the family.
Yeah, to the perceived needs of the family.
All right, so let's shift gears a little bit. Move on to medieval Europe.
Right.
Did things change with the rise of Christianity?
There were some significant shifts, yes. Like what?
Well, for starters, the church prohibited consanguineous marriages. Marriages between close relatives. Which had been, common practice.
Right, to keep the power in the family.
To maintain power and wealth within families.
Right.
But the church said,
They said no.
That's morally wrong.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah.
What else did the church do?
Well, they also emphasized consent.
Okay.
Which was a pretty big departure from earlier norms. Where, marriages were often arranged. Without input.
From people getting married.
From the individuals involved.
Right. Okay. So that's
progress.
That sounds like progress.
Yeah.
So did the church establish a specific age?
Yeah. They adopted this concept of parental consent being required. Until the age of majority.
Which was?
21. However, things get a little more complicated in the 12th century.
How so?
Well, the church declared that girls over 12 and boys over 14 could marry without parental consent.
Without?
Even in secret.
Hold on. So the church was promoting consent?
Right.
But then allowing kids to marry secretly?
Yeah.
That seems...
It definitely raises questions.
Yeah. Contradictory.
Yeah, and
Do they not see?
We have to remember.
The potential for problems.
The church's stance on marriage evolved over time.
Right.
And this particular ruling sparked a lot of debate.
Oh, really?
Some saw it as a way to acknowledge young people's desires. Others worried about impulsive decisions.
Right. Vulnerable individuals.
Vulnerable individuals being taken advantage of.
Yeah. So it's a reminder that even with good intentions, it's hard to find the right balance.
It's not always easy.
Yeah.
And this whole...
to defining
marriageable age.
Marriageable age. Yeah.
It wasn't a straight line?
Not a straight line.
Winding road.
Winding road.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, the Wikipedia article also mentions the age of consent, which I think is often confused with marriageable age.
Yes.
Can you clarify?
Absolutely. The age of consent refers specifically to the legal age at which a person can consent.
To sex.
To sexual activity.
Okay.
It's a separate legal concept from marriageable age.
Got it.
But historically, they've often been intertwined.
Right, because you could be legally married.
You could.
But not old enough to consent.
Exactly. And the evolution of age of consent laws is fascinating.
We could do a whole deep dive.
A whole other deep dive
on that. But we'll stick with marriageable age for now.
Yes.
The first recorded age of consent law in England was 1275.
Okay.
And get this?
What?
The age was 12.
Wow. Yeah, so the Statute of Westminster, 1275.
Okay.
Made it a misdemeanor to have sex with a maiden within age, which was interpreted as...
The age of marriage?
The age of marriage at that time.
At the time, yeah.
It's interesting.
It is. It's a reminder that
things change.
Societal norms and legal frameworks, they're constantly evolving.
Yeah.
And often they reflect the anxieties of the time.
Yeah. Sometimes those norms seem pretty wild to us today. They do. Like this anecdote from the article. In 1564 England, there's a record of a 3-year-old boy.
A 3-year-old?
Being married to a 2-year-old girl.
That's
I know.
That's something else.
I know, but it's important to understand that these marriages wouldn't have been consummated.
Right, of course.
Until much later.
Until they reached puberty, most likely.
Right.
Yeah.
So these early marriages...
Yeah, they were more about...
We're about something else.
Symbolic agreements between families.
Yeah.
Like...
Maybe political, economic reasons.
Okay, so that makes a little more sense.
Right, provides context.
But a 3-year-old groom
Yeah.
Definitely challenges our...
modern sensibilities.
Modern sensibilities.
Yeah, that does. But these historical examples, they offer a valuable opportunity, I think.
Okay.
To step outside our current perspective and consider how many different social forces shaped marriage. Yeah.
All right, so let's fast forward a bit.
Okay.
What happened in more modern times? Did marriageable age start to climb?
It did.
To a more reasonable level?
Yeah, we see a gradual increase throughout modern history in the U.S. and Europe.
Right.
Teen marriages, once commonplace, became quite rare.
In Western countries?
In Western countries, yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
And you know, those trends have continued.
They have.
But what about the rest of the world? What's going on there? That's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
According to a report by the UN Population Fund, the minimum legal age still varies.
So some places,
quite a bit globally,
still allow child marriage.
Unfortunately, yes.
Oh, wow.
The report reveals that many countries make exceptions that allow marriage below 18 with parental or judicial consent.
Okay. But there is some good news.
There is.
Many EU and developing countries are tightening their laws.
They are either banning marriage under 18 completely
Okay.
or requiring judicial approval.
That's a step in the right direction.
It is.
Are there any countries that are, like, leading the charge?
Finland is a great example.
Okay.
They completely banned marriage under 18.
Good for them.
Back in 2019.
No exceptions.
No exceptions.
Wow, okay. But, you know, marriageable age is so culturally varied.
It is.
I'm guessing there are places where early marriage is still deeply ingrained.
You are absolutely right.
Okay.
Let's explore some specific regions.
Okay, take it away.
So, Eastern Europe. It's a region where early marriage traditions persisted even into the medieval period.
Interesting.
Specifically, the article mentions the Slavic custom of marrying brides around 13 to 15 years old.
So that's pretty different from what we were talking about in Western Europe.
Yeah.
Why do you think?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I think we have to remember how the Catholic Church really influenced those later marriage ages.
In Western Europe.
In the West.
Yeah.
And that influence wasn't as strong in the East.
I got it.
Plus the manorial system.
Right.
Which also kind of encouraged later marriage.
In the West.
Yeah, by tying people to the land.
Okay.
It didn't really take hold.
In Eastern Europe.
In Eastern Europe.
So it's like Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
Held on to
those older social structure.
Yeah.
Cultural norms.
That favored early marriage.
Exactly.
Okay. It's amazing how geography and cultural history can shape something like marriage.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah. Speaking of different cultural contexts, what about Mesoamerica?
Mesoamerica.
The Wikipedia article briefly touches on Aztec and Mayan practices.
Right.
What were marriage ages like in those societies?
It seems like marriage ages were generally in the late teens.
Okay.
Early 20s.
Okay.
For the Aztecs,
yeah,
men typically married between 20 and 22.
Got it.
Women between like 15 and 18.
So a bit later then.
Yeah, a bit later.
Ancient Greece and Rome.
But still younger.
Than
what's considered the norm.
Than what's normal today.
In many countries today.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, for the Mayans, both men and women. Usually married around 20.
Okay.
Though some women married as young as 16 or 17.
Okay, but, you know.
Yeah, of course.
Our understanding is based on limited historical record.
Yeah. And there was likely variation within those cultures as well.
Of course. Yeah. It's incredible how these practices varied across different civilizations.
Yeah.
Now, we've talked a lot about cultural and historical influences.
Right.
But what about religious perspectives?
Ah, yes.
The article also talks about
religion.
How different religions view marriageable age.
Huge influence there.
Okay.
Let's start with Judaism.
Okay.
So, traditionally, the minimum age in Rabbinic Judaism, 13 for boys and 12 for girls.
Oh, wow.
With betrothals often taking place even earlier.
Like, they just sound familiar.
They do, right?
Like those early minimums.
From Roman times.
Yeah.
It's interesting how those early legal precedents influenced later religious and social practices.
Wow, okay.
Now, moving on to Christianity.
Okay.
Catholic canon law. Initially adopted
Okay.
The Roman ages.
Of 12 and 14.
12 for girls, 14 for boys.
But later raised them.
But they later raised them.
So the Catholic Church, even though they initially followed those early Roman ages, eventually recognized the need
they did.
For a higher marriageable age.
And that shift really reflects the evolving understanding of child development.
Right.
And the importance of consent.
Within the church.
Yeah.
Okay, now in Islam, the marriageable age is linked to
puberty.
Puberty.
But the specific age can vary based on different schools of
Islamic jurisprudence.
Islamic jurisprudence.
So even within a single religion, there can be different interpretations and practices.
Absolutely.
When it comes to marriage.
The diversity of viewpoints within religious traditions.
Yeah.
It's often overlooked.
It is.
It's a reminder that there isn't always a single answer to these complex questions.
And for a very specific age requirement, the Baha'i faith.
The Baha'i faith sets the age of marriage.
At 15.
At 15.
For both genders.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So we've gone from ancient Rome to the Baha'i faith.
A whirlwind tour.
What a whirlwind tour.
Of marriageable age.
Of marriageable age. It feels like we barely scratched the surface.
I know.
But we've uncovered some...
We found really fascinating insights.
Insights, yeah. Okay. So before we wrap up, let's recap.
Yeah, let's do a little recap.
What stood out to you?
I mean, for me, it's just the sheer range of marriageable ages throughout history.
Yeah.
You know, from those surprisingly young ages.
In ancient Rome.
In ancient Rome.
To the much later practices. Yeah. To the later practices
that we see today.
That we see in many Western societies today.
There's no one-size-fits-all.
There's no one-size-fits-all approach.
That's approach.
Yes.
It's a good reminder.
It is.
That what we consider normal today.
Normal is relative.
It's just a product.
It's just a product of our
kind.
Our own cultural and historical context.
Exactly. What about you? What surprised you?
You know what surprised me?
Yeah.
Was how closely tied marriageable age is to social and economic forces.
Oh, interesting.
Like, for example, during times of economic hardship, like in medieval England, after the Black Death, people tended to delay marriage.
Okay.
Conversely, when there was a labor shortage, couples might marry younger.
To help out?
To help with work on the farm.
Right. So it wasn't just about love and romance.
It wasn't just about love and romance. It was about...
It was often a matter of survival.
Survival and practicality.
And we saw that.
We saw a similar dynamic.
In ancient Rome.
In ancient Rome.
With Emperor Augustus.
With Augustus, encouraging marriage and childbirth.
Strengthen the empire.
Yeah. Those policies really underscore how political and economic agendas
can
influence something as personal
as
marriage.
It's a reminder that even seemingly individual choices are often shaped by
larger forces at play.
Larger forces. Totally. It shows how something as personal as marriage can be influenced by factors that seem totally unrelated.
Totally unrelated.
At first glance.
But those connections are there.
But they're there.
If you look closely enough.
Yeah. And that brings us to a really important question.
It does.
With all this historical and cultural variation, how do we determine the appropriate age?
For marriage. For marriage.
In today's society.
In today's world.
That's a big one.
It is a big one.
It is.
It's like asking what defines adulthood.
Yeah.
You know?
Where do we even begin?
Well, I think for starters, we need to move beyond simply looking at physical maturity.
Okay.
While puberty might have been a reasonable marker in the past.
Back then.
Our understanding of brain development has evolved.
Right. Just because someone hits puberty doesn't mean they're emotionally or mentally prepared.
For the complexities of marriage.
For marriage. It's about so much more.
It is.
Than physical development.
It is.
We also need to consider an agency, ensuring that young people have the freedom to choose when and whom they marry. Is really important.
Absolutely.
Forced marriage is a violation.
A serious violation of human rights. We need to.
And we need to be vigilant.
Protect children are vulnerable.
Vulnerable to those practices.
Exactly. It's about ensuring that everyone
has the power.
Has the power to make their own choices.
About their lives.
About their lives.
About their lives and futures.
And their futures. I couldn't agree more.
And finally, we have to acknowledge the social and economic realities
of our time. Access to education.
Right.
Job opportunity.
Gender equality.
Play
a role.
A significant role.
In determining when someone's ready.
In determining when individuals are ready.
For marriage.
To make those informed decisions.
Yeah, it's complicated.
It is a complicated issue.
No easy answers.
But
I think our deep dive today has given us a lot to think about.
It has.
It really has.
It's crucial to approach these conversations. With sensitivity and understanding.
And a willingness to learn.
From
different perspectives.
From diverse perspectives.
Well said.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
You're welcome.
Until next time.
Keep
exploring.
Keep
questioning.
Keep
diving deep.
And keep diving deep into the world around you.
As we've been talking, I keep thinking about that story about the 3-year-old groom.
Right.
This 1564 England.
3-year-old groom.
Can you imagine?
It's wild.
Explaining that to a child today.
I know their jaws would drop.
It's so wild.
But it shows you how much things can change.
Yeah, societal norms.
So,
I mean,
what was once normal?
What was once acceptable?
Acceptable is now unthinkable.
Yeah, totally unthinkable.
Yeah.
It really highlights how important it is.
It does.
To approach these topics with an open mind.
And a willingness to understand.
Yeah, willingness to understand.
Different perspectives. Yeah. And you know something else I was thinking?
What's that?
The Wikipedia article.
Yeah.
It barely touches on.
It doesn't really.
The experiences.
Yeah.
Of the people.
Who
were actually getting married.
Yeah.
At these ages.
Right.
Like what would a young bride in ancient Rome have to say?
What would she say?
About her situation.
It's easy to get taught up in the
legal and societal
frameworks. But we have to remember that these were
real people. Making life-altering decisions.
Yeah. Within the constraints of their time.
Absolutely.
It would be fascinating.
It would be.
To hear their stories. Okay, so we've covered a lot today.
We have.
Ancient practices.
Modern trends.
The
concept of marriageable age.
How it's evolved.
And how it's shaped.
Tracked by so many factors.
But before we wrap up. I want to go back
to
that question you asked with all this variation.
Yeah.
How do we determine the appropriate age?
In today's society.
The
$1 million question.
Yeah.
There's no easy answer.
Right.
But I think our deep dive has highlighted some key considerations.
Okay, like what?
We need to think about more than just
physical maturity.
Right. Emotional and psychological development.
Education.
Educational opportunities.
Economic
independence.
And consent.
And most importantly,
consent and agency.
It's
not about
picking a number.
Picking an arbitrary number. It's about creating an environment.
Yeah.
Where young people
are empowered to make informed choices. About their lives. And relationships.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, I think we've given our listeners a lot to think about.
A lot to ponder.
What's one final thought?
I think
you want to leave them with?
The most important takeaway is that marriageable age.
Yeah.
It's not a static concept.
It's not.
It changes.
Yeah.
It reflects our
evolving
value,
beliefs,
our understanding of
human development. Well, you have to.
And as we continue
to
grapple with these issues,
open and honest,
it's crucial to have those
conversations.
Open and honest conversations. Listen to different perspectives. And be willing to challenge.
Our assumptions. Beautifully said.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
It's been a pleasure.
On the deep dive.
As always.
Until next time.
Yes.
Keep exploring.
Keep questioning.
And keep diving deep.